I hope all of you have had a great new year and are ready for 2024. I listened to some people this week saying, boy, they're glad 23 is over, and there are other people that thought 23 was a great year, but they're still looking forward to even better things in 24. And if you want to know how I feel about it, you go listen to last week's sermon and you'll know how I feel about 24. I'm excited about it. We want to welcome you who are here. We want to welcome those who are watching online today. I know a lot of people are concerned about the weather and about snow, and some of you are at home snuggled up on the couch and you've got your hot chocolate and you've got your outline right in front of you and you're taking notes, I'm sure. I want to welcome you to our new series for January. It's called Slaying the Monster. In the next few weeks, we hope to give you both biblical as well as practical principles to help you deal with the monster I'm calling finances. So I ask you, you don't need to raise your hand. Do we have any English writers or English teachers or writers or people who dream of writing a novel someday like Tom Clancy or Stephen King? I want to ask you if you know what simile is. Well, here's the definition of simile. Simile is a figure of speech involving the comparison of one thing of a different kind, used to make a description more emphatic or vivid. So, some years ago, a college professor, a writing professor, asked their class in the final exam to write down some examples of simile. So here are my 5 favorite. Number 1, the little boat gently drifted across the lake exactly like a bowling ball wouldn't. Number 2, John and Mary had never met, just like 2 hummingbirds that had never met. These are funny, folks. You're supposed to laugh. Number 3, if you don't laugh, we'll check your pulse. Her hair glistened in the rain like nose hair after you sneeze. You just can't make this stuff up, folks. Long separated by cruel fate, the star-crossed lovers raced across the field towards each other like 2 freight trains, one having left Cleveland at 6:36 going 55 miles an hour, and the other having left Topeka at 4:19 at the speed of 39 miles an hour. Now, if you've ever taken an SAT test, you know exactly where that came from. And number 5. Her vocabulary was as bad as whatever. That's it. Here's one I want to add. Their money, I think it's in your outline. Their money had become like Godzilla and trampled all of their dreams. Let me say it again. Their money had become like Godzilla and trampled all of their dreams. Did you know that there's more said about money in the Bible than about heaven or hell? Money is the number 1 subject in marital disputes. Nothing even comes close. Sex, jobs, child raising, in-laws, outlaws, nothing comes close to the discussions about money. Managed wisely, money can be a huge blessing for you and those around you. But managed poorly, it can be the monster that eats you up and spits you out. Legendary football coach Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers, the hated Green Bay Packers. There may be a Packer fan here. I better be careful. At the beginning of every first practice of every year, he would hold up a football and he would say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Now, why would he do that? Those guys had been playing since they were 8 years old. Some of them were 38 years old. They've been playing for 30 years. They know what a football looks like. But what he was saying to them is, it's all important to know the fundamentals. The basic things matter. Today thought I would kick off our series by looking at the basics, sort of a money management 101 class. It is our prayer that this series will bring families together and lead to healthier homes. Doing that will bring us all more financial freedom, but more importantly, financial peace. When I say financial freedom, I don't mean financial arrogance where we lord it over people, but more importantly, to bring it more into balance in our life. Because when we do that, it leads to satisfaction, contentment, and even generosity. So I want to ask you, again, don't raise your hand, if you are a diary keeper, and there's some of you in the room that have kept diaries, your checkbook is like a diary. Now, if we posted up on the screens your checking account statement, by the way, we're only doing A to L this week, okay? That's funny, folks. I'm not going to do that. Well, you guys are you frozen? We must be frozen out there today. I'm not going to put your checking account up there. But it tells you a lot about you. It reveals your spending habits. It tells you what your priorities in life are. When we look at it, we see how much we spend on entertainment, how much we spend on going to restaurants. We even talked about it yesterday at lunch with some people that Brenda and I had lunch with. Tells you how much you spent on your big vacation, or how much you spent last month on Christmas presents. Now, I'm not trying to be Scrooge up here. That's not my goal at all. It reveals whether you are impulsive or not, whether you are generous or whether you're frugal. It tells you what makes your heart beat. Remember, Jesus did say that where your heart is, there your treasure will be as well. The series is not designed to bring guilt to anyone, but rather to teach us some principles that you can use to manage your money. We all have some financial decisions that we've made in the past that didn't go well. Trust me, Godzilla and I have gone round toe-to-toe for some time. But here are two basic principles. The first is, God owns it all. God owns it all. We're going to be in Matthew 25. And I want to begin with just reading verses 14 and 15 of Matthew 25. This is a very famous parable that Jesus teaches at the end of his life. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. And point A is absolutely critical. And it says he entrusted his money. And it's capital H-I-S, money. It's his money. He entrusted it to them. I own absolutely nothing. He owns it all. I get the privilege to manage it. Some of you were, I hope all of you, I should say all of you. Is there anyone in the room who did not get a dollar bill today? Okay. Did you not get a dollar bill, Kirk? That's a whole nother sermon, Kurt. I love it. So this week I went to our bank with Brenda's permission, and I took some money out of the bank so that I could give you $1, and I want you to know that I'm entrusting you with that $1. And at the end of the month, on the 28th, we're going to see what that $1 provides. We're going to see how well you manage the $1 that Brenda and I gave you. If there is anyone who didn't get $1, and Kirk obviously wants $2. Wouldn't you like to look at his checkbook? I'm going, no. I love it. So that's why you were given $1. No, Brenda and I are not paying you to come to church. We're not. It's not our... I want to use it as an example. The servants were given some money from their master, and he entrusted it to them. So here's what the Old Testament teaches about God and our possessions. Let's begin with Moses and Deuteronomy. There are several quick passages. They're going to be up on the screen. You don't need to write anything, but I'm just going to read them for you. So Moses says in Deuteronomy 10:14, "Behold, to the Lord your God belong heaven and the heaven of the heavens, the earth, and all that is in it." And again in Deuteronomy 8:17-18, he says, "Beware, lest you say in your heart, my power and my might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you your power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant, that he swore to your fathers as it is this day." Then look what the Lord said to good old Job in Job 41:11. "Who has the first given to me, that I should repay him? Whatever is under the whole heaven is mine." To the prophet Haggai, he wrote in chapter 2, verse 8, "The silver is mine, the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts." And Asaph, the writer of the 50th Psalm, writes in these words, verses 10-12, "For every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the hills, and all the moves in the fields is mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world and its fullness are mine." David proclaims in Psalm 24:1, we all know it, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein." And finally from 1 Chronicles 29:14, "But who am I, and what is my people, that we should be able thus to offer willingly? For all things come from you." All things. Give Roy $1, would you please? There you go. Hang on, Roy. She's got some money for you. And don't give it to Kurt, okay? I want, as you all have gotten your $1, I hope on the 28th we can come with our dollars and all that we have produced because of it, by the way we managed it. You see, it's all his, and he gives us everything we have, and he tells us we're to manage it. B, every spending decision is a spiritual decision. Every spending decision is a spiritual decision. God owns it all, and if I believe that, it frees me up to do the best I can for the kingdom. You see, every spending decision is a spiritual decision. I'm using His resources every time. I have latitude, but it's always His resources. He wants us to enjoy His resources, but I'm going to have to give an accounting for it when I face God. The first principle helps me to get the who right. The who is God. But the second principle helps me get the why right. And here's the second principle. Here's the second fundamental principle. God has enrolled us in the Character Development School. God has enrolled us in the Character Development School. The most important thing you bring home every day is not your paycheck. It is your character. God will use all sorts of things to shape us. Jobs, kids, schools, difficult neighbors, tough bosses, demanding coaches, illnesses, and even the loss of people who are close to us, just to make us more like Jesus. He uses 3 ways to shape our character. 3 ways to shape our character. Here's the first one. It's letter A. He uses it as a tool. A tool to shape our character. Just as a potter's wheel is massaged and used as a tool to shape whatever you want to make out of it, He uses it to shape all of our drives and all of our passions. God has placed within each of us the desire to excel. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be excellent. You know, when I'm having a surgery, I don't want someone to say to me, well, that doctor's okay, but he's not excellent. I want an excellent. Don't you want an excellent surgeon? I don't want someone to do, oh, he's okay. You know, okay. Doesn't instill a lot of confidence. I had the privilege when we lived in Florida for 12 years we lived in Jacksonville, and a lady in my Sunday school class that I taught was able to get me passes to the players tournament at the Sawgrass Golf Course in Ponte Vedra Beach, just outside Jacksonville. It's a very famous golf course. Even if you don't play golf, you've probably heard of the famous 17th hole. It's an island green, and Clark, who's downstairs, he and I actually sat there and watched one day 2 holes in 1 on that little island green. But anyway, one of the things that I was amazed at, and I would go, she'd give me tickets years after year after year, probably for 7 of the 10 years we were in Florida. So I went several years. But it was amazing to me, golfers would finish their round, and they would have shot a very good round. Do you know what they do? They go out to the practice green or the practice tee to get better for the next day. So there's nothing wrong. Some of us are very driven to be excellent. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a healthy desire to get better, but don't be naive. Don't let it cause you to become greedy, insensitive, because that lust for more can certainly take place. Statistics show that those who make $250,000 a year give less percentage-wise to charity than those who make far less. You see, our ambition must stay balanced, or as our possessions grow, our character will shrink. God is continually using our finances as a tool to shape our character. So what is He trying to teach you? All right, let's go to number B. He uses it as a test to shape your character. Money can test my motives. What am I really about? Who I am really. Let me go back a minute so you don't miss point B. He uses it as a test. The key word is test, to shape our character. Who am I really? Do I really love God? Do I genuinely care about people? Is my heart expanding generously to share with others? Or am I selfishly shrinking on the inside? God wants to test my integrity. The other day, a friend of mine posted a post. I just told Brenda, I said, I have to use this. And it's a little dated, not the post, but the story's a little dated, but you get the picture. Several years ago, a preacher from out of state accepted a call to a church in Houston, Texas. Some weeks after he arrived, he had an occasion to ride the bus from his home to the downtown area. When he sat down, he discovered that the driver had accidentally given him a quarter too much change. As he considered what to do, he thought to himself, you better give the quarter back. It would be wrong to keep it. Then he thought, oh, forget it, it's only a quarter. Who would worry about such a little bit of money? Anyway, the bus company gets too much fare anyway. They will never miss it. Accept it as a gift from God and keep quiet. When the stop came, he paused momentarily at the door, and then he handed the quarter to the driver and said, here, you gave me too much change. The driver said with a smile, aren't you the new preacher at such and such church? Yes, he said. Well, I've been thinking a lot about going somewhere to church. I just wanted to see what you would do if I gave you too much change. I'll see you in church on Sunday. When the preacher stepped off of the bus, he literally grabbed the nearest light pole, held on, and said, oh God, I almost sold your son for a quarter. How many times has our integrity been challenged and we sold ourselves out for not much more than a quarter? I want to tell you, I know we have people in our audience today who have great integrity and have been challenged, had that integrity challenged, and they didn't flinch. They just walked away rather than be compromised. Proverbs 1:19 in the Message says, nobody robs a bank with everyone watching. Yet that's what these people are doing. They're doing themselves in. When you grab all you can get, that's what happens. The more you get, the less you are. Wow. So let's continue in the parable in Matthew 25. Let's pick it up in verses 16 and 17. 16 and 17 says, he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. The amount is not, you see, the amount is not important at all. It didn't matter whether it was you're a 2-talent person or a 5-talent person. But here's the result, and it's found in Matthew 21 to 23, 25, 21 to 23. The master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Isn't it what every one of us wants to hear? Well done, good and faithful servant. You see, it's not about the dollar amount. I suspect that most of us in this room are probably 2-talent people. I don't think we have very many 5-talent people in our midst. You see, he does it to see if we can be entrusted with little things, because if we take care of little things, then he will entrust us with big things like the souls of people. Here's how Luke describes it in Luke 16, 10 to 13. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have been faithful, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. All right, number 3. First we had a tool, then we had a test, and number 3 is testimony. He uses it as a testimony to shape our character. We continue again back in the parable, Matthew 25, verses 24 and 25. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. Now, I don't know. Maybe he was worried about how his master would treat him. Or maybe he was ticked off that he only got 1 bag and somebody else got 2 and somebody else got 5. But the one thing I do know, his heart was never about pleasing the one who had given him everything. You see, money testifies to the world how we feel about God. Let me say that again. Money testifies to the world how we feel about God. Hebrews 13:11. Keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That is truth, the truth of God. And our lives become a testimony to our neighbors and to our friends about how we feel about God. Your generosity will just flow when you trust God. Now, some of us in the world, we want to cut class. We don't want to go to this character development class. So we either want to cut it or we want to drop out. You say, I can't be on a budget. No way. That'll never work. I'm spontaneous. I need to hit it big. Powerball is the way to go. It's the way to get rich quick. I've seen people, I think you have as well, spend $50 or $100 on lottery tickets while their 3 hungry kids are sitting out in their dilapidated car out front. We can get obsessed about fantasy football or the stock market, and soon it will control us. I have a friend, that's not his name, who was so addicted to gambling and alcohol. He told me one day that he was so drunk that when he left the casino in Kansas, and it was a casino down, not Dodge City, but a casino. When I left there, I got about 100 miles down the road and I realized I had left $10,000 sitting on the table in my motel room in the casino. We sink, that by the way, if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. We sink our money in get-rich schemes and lose our shirts. We sink our money in all sorts of things, thinking it will be quick. We want to get rich quick. You know why? Because it doesn't require any character. It only requires luck. It doesn't require any character. It just requires luck. One of the ways that God wants to do that is to let you manage His money, His resources. So you can learn traits like wisdom, discipline, patience, perseverance, courage and conviction and compassion and gratitude and generosity and contentment, because that's what really counts. That's it, contentment. Powerball cannot give you contentment. I want to be a good manager of what He gives me. I know you do too. I want to cultivate contentment and have peace in my life. I want to make a difference in the world with my resources. I heard a guy say one time that my goal in life is to have my cash and my life run out at the exact same time. And if I die after lunch on Tuesday, it'll happen. That's not a plan, folks. But you have to get a plan. So I hope you will join me, and as we go through this journey for the next few weeks, as we talk about slaying the monster. One thing about this parable that can trip us up is the fact that you might be just a two-bag person. In fact, as I said earlier, most of us probably are. So I can remember when I graduated from college and I went to work as a youth minister in a little town of 410 people, Scio, Oregon. And they paid me $25 a week and gave me an old rundown house, an apartment on the side of it that I could live in. And I worked in a lumber mill to provide for myself. I worked there for a couple of years and then went to seminary. And when Brenda and I finished seminary, in 1976, we moved back to Tillamook, Oregon. You probably eat Tillamook cheese. I'm sure you all buy Tillamook cheese at Dillon's. It's made there in that wonderful little town that we lived in. It rains 91 inches a year. So don't ask me to pray for rain. Please don't ask me to pray. I do. I've lived here long enough. I know we need to. But when we lived in Tillamook, I was paid $13,900. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. What a great paycheck. Then I had a friend, and he said, well, I'm making $20,000. And I thought, man, what's with that? You see, that's what happens to us. We always want to be like somebody else. Barna did a study, and he found out that people that make $25,000 a year, they asked them, how much would you really need to be happy in life? And the conclusion was $54,000 a year. This is a couple of years ago, not just recently. The same study showed that people that made $100,000 a year needed $192,000 to make them feel happy. So what's the conclusion? Happiness is twice as much money as we have. That's ludicrous. That's why if you think your money is your money, you will always need twice as much. But when you think it's God's money and you're managing it, it changes everything. God is the owner. He uses it to build our character so we can be content. And I want to conclude with this wonderful passage from Philippians 4. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. You see, here's the ultimate goal, and this is the conclusion, if you're keeping notes. The ultimate goal is contentment. The ultimate goal is contentment. And when we are content, we have gratitude to God for all that He has given to us. We're going to sing this wonderful song by Brandon Lake called Gratitude. We're going to do it as not only to remind us about how grateful we should be for what God has given us, but also to prepare our hearts and minds for the Lord's Supper. And I will say it now, and I may say it again